Yep.
We're rolling. Jacobus, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah.
It's really nice to see you. We did this last year,
Yeah.
and it was kind of short.
Yeah. Now
And
I
then you
want the full
said,
story.
whatever that means.
So I know you, and if people listen to the podcast, they know a little bit about you, but I won't make the mistake again in case somebody doesn't know you. Who are you and what do you do? Is your business?
Yeah, that's my name is Jacobus Hollewijn. I was born and raised in the Netherlands. I moved to the United States with my wife and my son and our daughter on the way in 1985. Ended up staying in the Los Angeles area. I was a chef. I've been to chef school. I cooked for years. And we were having people who were going to help us with our green card. They said, come on over. We're going to help you with this process. But we want you to work for us. I had met him in 81 and 82. And so we decided to make the trip, left the family behind, sold everything. And this was our new life. Well, about a year and a half in, but a little over a year, they said it was too confusing for them and they didn't want to sponsor. They wanted me, but they didn't want to sponsor us with our green card. So the relationship kind of changed and we had to leave. We couldn't survive. We decided not to work with them anymore. And so we decided to move to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and not because we were looking. It's because a lady we knew said, you should go to Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Now, you got to imagine, we came from the Netherlands. We don't know the United States. So we said, what is Wyoming? And they said, well, it's a state. They said, it's up north. I said, really? I said, yeah, what is Jackson Hole? It's a great little town. They got 82 restaurants. You should be able to find work there. So we reached out to her mother who lived in Jackson Hole, and we ended up going to there. We're there for a year and a half, cooked in several places. I even won a blue ribbon, believe it or not, blue ribbon at the Jenny Lake Lodge for something I created. And that was fun. And we were there for about a year and a half, and we expected our third child. It's not that we keep moving every time we have a child. It is just that we didn't have insurance at the time, and there were no midwives in Wyoming back in 1988, 87, 88. So we decided we wanted to go somewhere where we had a midwife and pay out of pocket. And that was, the closest was Montana, Bozeman. And so we said, let's go to Bozeman. Our son was ready to go to first grade. And then our daughter, and then we had our baby, the third one, our youngest daughter was born in 88, late 88. So when we came over here, it was a lot of struggling. It was hard to find work. I cooked, but the income was not great. I was kind of the head chef. I was the one who created the menu and created the specials for the night. And they paid me $6 an hour. And I just, with 2 or 3 kids, I tried anything. I painted, I cleaned windows, started a window cleaning business. I sold vacuum cleaners. I did anything I could get my hands on. But what's interesting that in my window cleaning business, after doing that for 4.5 years at the time, and I was very busy, I cleaned windows downtown in Bozeman. And at the time, there was a health food store on South Wilson, on the first block of South Wilson, and it was called Montana Harvest Natural Foods. And I cleaned the windows there every couple of weeks, and I just traded it for food. And so when the real owner, was in the business, he was there maybe 3 months out of the year. He lived in California most of the time. Every time he was there, we just chit-chatted about children and about culture and politics and sports. And I guess he liked me. And in 1993, I was cleaning windows, and I came home. On my way home, I decided to stop from Big Sky to go over home. I decided to get a quick snack on my way up, and he said, can we talk? I said, yeah. What do you want to talk about? He said, well, I was going to ask you, how do you feel about giving up your business and become my manager? And I said, hey, I thought the American dream is to work for yourself and not being an employee somewhere. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, I think you like this better. And he said, let's get your wife involved. And so I said, okay, she's probably going to say no anyway. And she said right away, just do it. I said, no, I'm my own boss. And she said, I see what a struggle that is in your case. Especially cleaning windows in the wintertime is not easy. You know, the coldest I've done was -20 up in Big Sky. I did the Arrowhead condos, and it was brutal, you know, standing up to your hips in snow and climbing 40-foot ladders, and that was brutal. And anyway, so she said, just give it up. Go work for this man. And so I started working for him in January of 1994. And it was a struggle in the beginning, you know, to learn everything. When you become the manager, people come in and they say, hey, you're the manager, you must know everything. So they would start asking me health questions. Now, you got to imagine, Tim, 1994, Bozeman was still, you know, very limited, maybe 15, 20,000 people. And there was a lot of roads over here that were not developed yet the way it is right now. And so the people who came in were people who are really interested. There were some hippies moving into town that knew how to cook healthy and all that stuff, but it was still a struggle. So food-wise, in the health food store, I knew how to make food. I've been to chef school. I cooked for years. I loved healthy cooking. But when it came to supplements, I didn't know much. And so I literally had to grab the books, and I started, you know, helping people. I said, well, let's read this topic together. The other thing I did is I would ask people, what have you tried so far? You know, what have you been to a doctor? What therapy have you done? And so I learned from the guests or the customers themselves, and I put it in my noodle, and the next person would come in and say, hey, I just talked to somebody who had the same thyroid problem as you have. Sounds like it. This is what they tried. So I started to network. By the way, I want to say something. If you ask my wife, if she would sit here and you would have an interview with her, she has a completely different story. She has said, you always say it from your angle. And she said, and I am your wife, and the mother of the children, and my experience from moving around and being home and trying to work as well and taking care of the children because you were out and about has not been an easy time. And I got to say, Tim, if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I can say all the things that I have had, good and bad, but it's a team effort. It was definitely a team effort. So to finish that part of the story, if you don't mind, I was working for him, and I learned more and more. And then what happened is in 1996, so I was 2 years there, 2.5 years, I got approached by the local radio station, the Moose radio station, and a rep came in and said, hey, how do you like to do some commercials? And I said, sure. What do you need to do? And he said, well, just tell us what you want us to talk about. We'll put it together for you. We'll record it. And I said, well, can I write it myself? And he said, oh yeah, you can write it for us. And it's got to be 30 seconds or a minute. So he said, let's do 30 seconds. And I said, can I read it myself? Now, I'm sorry, I do not hear that I have an accent, but apparently I do.
I don't hear it at all.
No, I'm sure the viewers don't either. So I said, can I read it? And I started writing and reading it. And I told my wife, I said, this seems like a kind of a fun project. I would like to do this every week. I want to challenge myself to put a new message out every week so that it doesn't get boring. How many times you listen to the radio, if you still listen to radio, when the commercials come on, you hear the same commercial over and over and over, sometimes for 8-9 years, the same commercial.
You know all the words to it. You could recite them.
Yeah, you do, and many of them are the public service announcements, the PSAs. And I said, I want to do a new one every week. And so I started doing it, and it was a challenge. After about 25, I said, I can barely get enough information in. Let's do a minute. So luckily, the owner was not in town, so I kind of made an executive decision to do a minute. And I've been doing a minute ever since. Now, the owner and I had a falling out in 1999, and I left Montana Harvest, and I had to go back to cleaning windows for the time being and do other stuff to make a living. I started working then in a couple other stores in Bozeman, and I ended up going back to Montana Harvest in late 2002. So I was not there for about 3 years, 3.5 years. I worked in other places. And I went back there, and to me, everything, all the emotional issues were resolved. I said, I'm just happy to come back. This is where I had my heart. My heart was in Montana Harvest Natural Foods. And I had really found my passion. I think above everything, I go like, what an amazing business to be in, what an amazing field to be in, to hear the people come in and they're looking for answers and they get frustrated with what's out there. They just cannot find the answer they're looking for or a practical guide to move forward in life, to heal up. You understand what I'm saying with that? And so I was so excited to be back at Montana Harvest in late 2002, started doing the commercials again, and I've been doing them ever since. But at the same time, I was thinking about opening up my own store. And so 4 years later, in 2006, I started the process of, I found a place with the help of somebody else, and he wanted to become a partner, but I said, partners is not what I want to do. And the more we developed in this process, he said, it's all good. I'm going to do something else. So I felt it was kind of a load off my shoulder. Partnership is not always great. But I decided to open up my own place and gave my notice to Montana Harvest in January of 2007 and opened up the stores of my current store, Gesundheit Nutrition Center, in April 2007. So we've been there a little over 19 years that we've been open. Mm-hmm. And so Gesundheit Nutrition Center was actually the name of the store. Gesundheit means health or good health.
Before we keep rolling with today's episodes, I want to tell you about someone who changed how we show up as a business. When clients land on our website, we hear the same thing over and over. It just feels right. Amy of Unbridled Form asked us questions we'd never thought to ask ourselves, helped us figure out the deeper identity underneath our services, and translated that into a brand world we're genuinely proud of. Our ongoing partnership is easily one of the best investments we've made. Learn more at unbridledform.com. Now back to the show.
And it's a German word, even though I'm from the Netherlands. In the Dutch, we say Gesundheit, and Germans say Gesundheit, so I felt it was close enough. And I had started a radio show in 2000. So what happened with that, if I can jump in before I know we're going to talk more about the store. Are you okay still?
Yeah.
Good. So
I'm going to get all the way back to questions about the midwife.
Perfect. Let's do it. When I did my commercials every week on the radio, because of my accent, people got to know me, and they said my voice was standing out so much that they started associating me with the health food store. And I got many compliments on the fact that I pushed to do a new commercial every week. So after I left Montana Harvest in mid of 1999, I was downtown in 2000, March 2000, I was in a local coffee shop ordering a coffee. And I just said, well, I'll take that one, and why don't you give me a couple extra shots? And somebody said, you're that guy from the radio. And I said, I haven't been on the radio for about 1.5 years. And he said, oh man, I recognize your voice everywhere. And so I started thinking about it, and I decided to go back to the Moose radio station and talk to the guy at Talk Radio. And I had at times, he had invited me a few times to come in once a month, maybe talk about a health topic for about a half hour or so. It was always fun. I loved it. So I go to him, I said, George Carter. I said, how do you feel if I would start my own radio show? And he said, what do you want to talk about? I said, well, talk about health. And he said, let me think about it. Do you think you can cover 6 months? I said, because we always work in 6-month blocks. And I said, I'm sure I can do 6 months. There must be enough doctors to talk to converse with. So he gave me 2 hours on a Sunday morning from 11 o'clock till 1 p.m. But every time the Denver Broncos played or the Colorado Rockies had a game, he would preempt me because he would play those shows live. So there was quite a few shows that got cut. And I said, George, I need to have a time slot where I can just talk without interruption. He said, well, how about I give you Sunday morning 7 to 9? I said, 7 to 9? When am I going to prep it? I get up at 5 in the morning to prep the show. And he said, well, that's your problem. You want to take it or not? I said, okay, I'll take it. So there was many nights, Tim, I would be studying through the night because I worked. I was coaching soccer high school. So many times you have games on Saturday. You come home late out of Whitefish or a 6-hour drive, come home midnight. And then I still had to prep the show and be there at 7 o'clock to have an interview. And what I would do is I would invite my local guests, the ones I talked to over the phone, no problem. But the local guests, I would take them out to breakfast at 6 in the morning. There was a couple coffee shops that were open and they had Costco muffins. And at least we would just, have some to eat. And it was part of like, are they awake? And thank you for coming. And then we go to the studio and I would do the show. So after I opened up my own store in 2007, I decided to just continue that. And I ended up doing the show from July of 2000 till the end of 2019. And then 2020, COVID happened. They wouldn't let anybody in the studio anyway. But I did a fun run. It was about 914 live radio shows that I did. And
how many shows was it?
914
Wow.
live radio shows. So after a couple years of doing the early morning, I went from 7 to 10. So I got a 3-hour show. And I usually run out of time before I ran out of topics. And then a new program director came in, Mark Allen. And Mark Allen came up to me, he said, I listened to your show and I want to move you to Saturday. And so then I went to Saturday from 8 to 11. And that was a blast. To just 1 extra hour of sleep. And we could go for breakfast at 7. And I did that, like I said, till the end of 2019. I had a producer. And he would come in and was paid for by the radio station. But I never got paid, never got a dime, and never asked for it, didn't know I could ask. I was just happy I did the show. So I learned a ton with talking to customers, learning about products. And so meanwhile, I was doing my store. But I had called the show Gesundheit, ! Gesundheit with Jacobus. And so then I decided to call the store because it was 2007, 7 years into the show. I decided to call it Gesundheit! Nutrition Center. Mm-hmm. So that's the name of it.
So would you be advertising the store with the show? Or would you say, I own this store, or did you not do that?
I did it. I felt, maybe I'm Dutch, I felt it was unethical to use the grace of the radio station who hired me in 2000 when I was kind of in between jobs. I didn't feel that I was sponsored at the time. But what I did once I opened up my own store, I was still writing the commercials. So what I did is I would go in every Monday. So the show was on Saturday or Sunday. I would go in every Monday and write a 30-second promo that would play only on the talk radio station, that would announce what the topic was going to be or who the guest was going to be the coming show. So I did it to let people know, hey, this is coming up. So if you really like the topic, make sure you call Uncle Johnny and Aunt Joni so that they can tune in as well. But if it is a topic you're not interested in, I didn't want to bore you for 3 hours and listen to a show that you didn't want to listen to in the hope that something interesting was going to come. So maybe that was the thing behind it. So when the show started, I would play the promo. So right after news, play 30-second promo. Then the theme song would start and the show would start. Then in the beginning of the second hour, so right after the news, I would play my weekly commercial that had been playing all week. I would play that, which would say Gesundheit Nutrition Center, or for a while it was still Montana Harvest Natural Foods at the end. I mentioned it only once at the end. The commercials were not about promoting a product. I always said I don't want to mention a company name or a price or a specific product. I want to talk more about health concepts so that people don't get confused and what was the price and who did he say? I just listen to the minute, and at the end I say, for more information or something to that, come see me at Gesundheit Nutrition Center. then the third hour, the beginning of the third hour, I would play the commercial right after the news, 1 minute of what was going to play the following week. But for the rest, I did not want to mention my store because I felt it was not about the store. This was a separate entity, even though the name was the same.
But did it still result in a lot of people coming to the store because they'd hear you and know who you were?
Yeah, I do believe that over all these years, I'm talking 32 and a half years right now that I've been doing this professionally, and the show was almost 19 years. I think because I stuck with my topic, people who heard me said there is something trustworthy about him. We want to go pick his brain. And that has really helped, yes.
And are you still doing the radio?
No. At the end of 2019, I stopped. Actually, it stopped, to be honest, that I said I would like to do a podcast. I would like to take my radio show, clean it up, and then put it on a podcast. And I did 25 shows, and my wife said, "Are you actually allowed to do that?" And I said, "I've never signed a contract with them. I've never been paid a dime. I never even got concert tickets or a Christmas card. I mean, I'm literally part of the furniture who shows up at Saturday morning and plays the show." So I said, there shouldn't be a problem. But I decided to ask the manager, and he said, Jacobus, why do you want to do it? I said, well, maybe I can make some money if the show there was the number one show on Saturday morning. There was, to say real quick, there were 16 radio stations at the time. And if you take 100% of listeners, 16 divided by 16, 6% of listenership would be everybody equal. I was pulling in the last 7 years of my tenure, I was pulling in between 25 and 43% of the listenership. So it was the number one show on Saturday morning. So I said, if I'm popular local, why can I not be popular more nationwide, internationally, whatever? And he said, yeah, I know that's why you can make some money, but that's where the problem comes in. I said, what's the problem? He said, well, we own you. I said, you own me? You never signed any contract. He said, it doesn't matter. We give you a microphone, we give you a studio, and we're giving you 3 hours of broadcast time. So we own you. And I never looked at it that way. I got an attorney. I said, it shouldn't be that way. And he said, sorry, it is that way. That's the way it works in broadcasting, because the people who own that specific radio stations are located in New York, and they're big, and they have their attorneys. And so he said, you're going to lose it anyway. So I said, okay, maybe that's my time to quit. And so I quit at the end of 2019. But like I said, COVID started. I probably would not have been able to continue the show anyway.
Okay. And then, so since then you started doing your podcast.
Yeah, 22, 23, I started doing, at first I did audio. And then in 23, 24, I started moved into a different room in my house. It was a little bigger, 12 by 18. So I decided to use cameras, and I got somebody to help me with it. It's phenomenal. I love it.
And when you were doing all these radio shows, were they broadcasted live?
Yeah, they were broadcast. But see, my cameraman, who I have right now, my editor, he said that when he came to town many times on Sunday night, he was listening to a radio, said, I heard your radio show. I said, no, I was live. And he said, no, I think that you were live on Saturday, but they used your recording. I recorded it. They played it on Sunday night as well.
Oh, wow.
So maybe instead of Art Bell or somebody, George Norrie right now, who does a show. So I don't know, but that's when he heard me, like at 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah, I know some guys even do a podcast live, but then it's posted on YouTube or Spotify, so it can be listened to later, so that you do the live stream and then post again. Yeah.
So you mean with Q&As or something like that?
No, I mean like some people they'll do a live radio show like yours.
Yeah.
But they'll do it with their podcast, but then they will publish that so the live show can be replayed later. So it's kind of like they were
That's
doing.
That's what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
This is live.
But it's not like streaming anywhere live.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Saying like they'll stream it on YouTube and people can watch while it's happening.
Yeah. Yeah, that is, if I make it, if everybody is tuning in and says, hey, let me go check that podcast out, that would be great. So the podcast is not Gesundheit. The podcast is called Health in Focus with Jacobus. And I tell you what happened over here. During COVID, I said, okay, March, April of COVID 2020. We just knew there was a virus, but we didn't know much about it, right? There was a whole industry coming out. But I said, I'm doing my weekly commercials. One thing we do know, it's a virus. Now, I said in my health, they're called health pearls. I said in my health pearls, what if I can just give people suggestions about what they can do? Let's say vitamin D3 is a great antiviral. So is zinc. There is oil of oregano. So I would do commercials simply about some research that was done on these specific supplements. And I said, this is the Cambridge University did this, and there was this Irish university who studied that, and in Atlanta they studied this. And I would just post it. And not saying this is a cure for COVID. All I said, this is a way to build your immune system and to fight viruses. We got an email from the Federal Trade Commission in May of 2020, and they copied and pasted what I had said on the radio in an email. And they said, you crossed the line. And I said, I didn't say you take this and you won't get COVID. I didn't say any of that. I just said, if your immune system gets weak, what are some of the things? Number one, to fight viruses. Number two, to build your immune system. Vitamin C, vitamin E, magnesium is good. Copper is good. So I would just mention those things. And they said, you cannot talk about it. And so we climbed in the phone and we called the National Product Association, NPA, which is like a lobbyist group in Washington, and they are aware about what's being discussed, also about health. And they said, you got to lawyer up. I said, what? I said, oh yeah, you got to lawyer up. So they gave us the name of a man in New York, and we contacted him because he does more cases where people have issues with the law. And I go, I haven't said, it's free speech. I don't diagnose, I don't treat, or I don't cure. I just give people hope and say, this is things you can do. And so the attorney said, you cannot make any claims right now. I said, well, what about Dr. So-and-so? What about this man? He said, oh, they're all walking a fine line. So he said, if you want to talk, you cannot post it on the Gesundheit website. You need to create a whole new entity in which you're going to speak. And so that's when we came up with the name Health in Focus with Jacobus. And so we've decided to make that the name for the podcast. And so in the podcast, I can say anything I want. As you know, I can cuss and swear like Joe Rogan, but it's not my style. Yeah. So I don't want to embarrass anybody. I want to get through the topic, but it's not vulgar. I don't like that. I don't need it. Let me say it this way. Yeah. I don't need it. And so we have done about 30 podcasts. We're making shorts out of it. It's available on YouTube. If people decide they want to check it out, interesting topics, give us a like, follow us. It's you. Are you on YouTube? Yep. You making money yet?
No. Hi, folks. Quick note from me. If you don't already know, the goal of Mountain Mule is to build real connection between Montana's businesses and the people they serve. And if you don't know what Mountain Mule is, we provide private transportation services and Yellowstone National Park tours. If this episode or any other has given you something worth thinking about, smiling at, passing along, I've got a small ask. Share it with a friend, text it to someone, consider following the show. Whether you're using our services directly or following and sharing the show, those simple actions help support this business as well as the businesses and guests that have been a part of the show. Thank you for supporting these Montana businesses, local jobs, and this beautiful state. Now back to the show.
No. So first they said, if you get 500 followers and 3,000 hours of watching, you can start making money. So it's a grassroots thing. We were up to 815 followers. We crossed the 3,000 hours. We were at 3,050 hours. We reached out to YouTube. They said, no, now we want 1,000 followers and 4,000 hours. You go like, I don't know if they're going to yank my chain anymore after 4,000. We'll find out. But it is a little frustrating because it is costly to put things together. You're doing a lot of things yourself. I add more graphics to my podcasts, but it's an expensive project for sure.
And so the reason you separated Gesundheit and Health and Focus with Jacobus was to protect them so that the business didn't become liable for anything you said. Yeah, that's interesting. I remember you told me that. It was kind of like, the lawyer told you, like, you got to do this separate so you're not
you have
compromising.
to separate it out. Exactly.
Yeah.
And
Okay, I want to back you all the way up now from
you
your
want to
story.
go back to the midwife.
And to date now, so you're doing the podcast, you've got that going, and you've got Gesundheit Nutrition that's still in business. Yeah. Because you guys had a celebration last year, right?
We did 19 years in April.
So do you have big plans for 20?
I don't know yet if it is a big plan.
We
always do a sale. We always have a sale around the anniversary, but we always do it instead of doing it in April when everybody's getting ready to pay taxes. We do it like mid-June.
Smart.
And then we do a Christmas one in mid-December.
Okay. To back you all the way up, because you said you guys were looking for a midwife when you were having your third kid. Mm-hmm. And do you guys always do midwives with all your kids?
We had a midwife in Amsterdam where my son was born, and that was really something because we went to this midwife. It was more popular, especially, but my son is 43 now, so it was more popular then. And we found this lady in Amsterdam who was recommended to us, and we walked in there, and there was a little plaque, kind of an artist drawing of a lady sitting in a room on a rocking chair, which was her. And her name was Mrs. Marinas. And they drew all these cribs around her. And they said, Mrs. Marinas, mother of over 8,900 babies. And that was then. Okay. So that lady had a lot of experience. And when we had a few visits with her, and it's Amsterdam. We're talking about Amsterdam, which is a, relatively speaking, busy but not very huge city. And when my wife started having contractions, you don't know exactly what it is. We were going through these birthing classes. And so we call Mrs. Marinas, and she would send one of her assistants out, and that person would come on his bicycle. And he would go over the freeway. He would actually get on the freeway because it's all lit up in Holland and just get to us as quickly as possible, only to find out it was false alarm. But when it was the night when it was all going to happen, we decided, we didn't have a car in Amsterdam. You do everything on your bicycle. So you often give people a lift on the back of the bike. So I was giving my wife a lift on the back of the bike. And we went over cobblestones. And I think that was the instigation for the night. She was due that day. And we called the midwife at about 2 in the morning, 1:30, 2 o'clock. And so again, the assistant came and checked everything. And he called her and he said, I think she's due. We got about 8-9 centimeters. And she said, okay, I'm coming. And she showed up at about, I think she walked in at about 3:35 a.m. And I opened the door for her. We were 3 high in an apartment building. And she walked in and she said, she walks in the bedroom. She looks at my wife. She said, oh yeah, go ahead, push. That's all she said. And the baby was born in 10 minutes. I guess she can look at the face and say, you're ready. And so I think she was out by 4:10.
Wow.
And we put our son between us and we went back to sleep. And when we woke up in the morning, he was still laying there. So we said we didn't roll on top of him. Life changes. Life changed overnight. It was almost like he'd been there with us for all this time.
So was the midwife kind of out of necessity at that time? Because there wouldn't really be a way to get her to the hospital?
Yeah, that's totally true. So what we did in the United States, we came with a daughter. We went to a midwife. So on the way, My wife was 6 months pregnant when we flew. And after 7 months, all of a sudden the contractions accelerated and she had to lay flat for the duration of the pregnancy. And our daughter came about, she was full grown, but she was about, according to our calculations, about 5 weeks early, a few weeks early. No, maybe not 5 weeks, maybe 3 weeks early. But the midwife said, because of these contractions, I think you need to see a medical doctor. And so we ended up going to a hospital. My wife was there for a few days and the baby came.
Okay.
And then the third one, we did a midwife, and she lived in Pine Creek. And we had gone to her a few times, and she came over. She was an amazing lady. And it was November, and we had a blizzard. And she said, I don't want your kids to come. I'm coming to Bozeman. And so she drove with her husband through the blizzard over the pass and came to Bozeman. And our daughter was born a little 11 o'clock at night.
Okay.
Like that.
So, and you have grandkids now or no?
Yeah, we got 4.
Did your kids use midwives or did they use?
No, they didn't.
Okay.
No. No. Let me think. No, they used, let me think now, my daughter-in-law she had a doctor who was kind of a midwife and delivery. But he was a medical doctor. And then my daughter she had to go to Billings because she had twins, and that changes a little bit. And they wanted her to go to Billings and go to the NICU. She was 5 weeks early. They were 5 weeks early.
Okay.
But they're full grown right now.
Okay.
It was quite the adventure.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I just got married. I don't have any kids, but
congratulations!
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm like thinking about like
Need some advice?
Yeah, well, I'm just lots of it. But I was just thinking, like, why do people do midwives? Why do people use the conventional hospitals? It sounds like it started out a necessity for you, and then you guys. Was that just your preference?
A tradition. I would say it was more a tradition.
Okay.
It was not per se necessity. In Amsterdam, we lived in Amsterdam. So it was just part of the deal. We were into health. We were into health food. Midwife was like the hip thing to do. Yeah,
and even here, in America, like some people think you're kooky or crazy if you use a midwife. Some people would swear by it and never use a doctor. So there's a lot of opinions on one or the other.
Well, there is, and now there is this. There is the worry about taking a child away and cleaning it up, taking it away out of the room, and you don't know what they're doing. And often they're given vaccinations, right away. And people who don't like vaccinations and want to be in charge of their child, as long as they can be in charge, rather have that baby with them. Yeah. And so there has been some controversy. I don't know exactly what is happening in the local hospital right now, if they still do that method or but there is this push. There is this push, we got to get the baby cleaned up, and we need to give you rest, and we're going to take care of it and put it over there and give it the vaccines and go like, okay, if you have a midwife, the baby's at home, and you can kind of determine your own schedule in that as far as that is concerned. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. And then you can also see the advantages of being in a hospital if there's a complication. Oh, absolutely. So absolutely. I tell you, if the NICU in Billings, there's now a NICU coming to Bozeman, Billings, Montana, phenomenal. The angels, they're just beautiful people caring about the babies. My daughter and my son-in-law were over there. They stayed at the Ronald McDonald House, which is down the street. Everything is so well taken care of. It is absolutely a blessing. And that was phenomenal. If that would not have happened, who knows if the babies would have been born healthy. And my sister had all her kids here in Bozeman, and she had a great experience with all of them. Yeah. They were like family by the time they left the hospital. Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah. So my oldest nephew, when he was born, it was during COVID. And so we couldn't go in. But then when my sister left, came outside to meet him, and the nurses came outside too because they wanted to meet our family. So it was like
But that's like Montana with a lot of stuff.
I think so too. And you have to keep in mind that so many people who go into the health field really care about patients. And it doesn't always come out that way, but I do nurses specifically. They're so into nursing. They're so into nurturing, I should say, individuals. So it's wonderful. Good for you.
That makes my my now mother-in-law is a nurse, and you can very much see it with her, with the way she she treats everyone. She treats me and my wife, and it's very cool to see that.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
I want to ask you a question that people ask me because I've like done a couple hundred interviews now.
Good for you.
And they always ask me what's one of the things I've learned from talking to all those people. So what's something you've learned from talking to all these people? Is there like any
on the show, you mean?
Yeah, just from all the people, like, is there anything that sticks out that you learn about people that
So in the store, I talk to a lot of customers. I do consultations. I listen to what they have to say, etc. Is that what you're talking about? Or you really mean when I do interviews with doctors and specialists and on the podcast as well?
Both. Like, is there just anything interesting that you...
What I felt with the radio show is that in the beginning, I had a few years where at times somebody forgot that they had to be on the show. I had also one time where the guest who was going to be on, who was an outdoor specialist, so he would just bring a knife out in nature, and then he would make his own traps and live out in nature. And I had never done anything like it. So I was like a fish out of water, but I thought it was a fascinating topic. So I had him on in the spring, and I learned so much. I mean, this man was talking about how he makes traps, how he catches animals, how he cleans it up, how he eats them, and he would make his own leather pans and sew it all together. And, it was fascinating. And I said, so you get wood over here? And he said, no. He said, I start about a mile out, 2 miles out. That's why I get my wood. I said, why? He said, well, Jacobus, if you get hit, if you get bit by a bear or a snake or anything like it, and you can't walk, and you already gathered all the wood around your campfire, you got to walk out, and now you're sick. I said, that makes total sense. Anyway, I told him, I said, why don't you come back in the fall and tell us about how it is to be out in the fall, out in the snow, and with the mountain goats, and And he said, yeah, I'd love to come back. So he had a heart attack overnight. They called me at 2:30 in the morning. They said, Tom's not going to make it. I said, what happened? I'm asleep. They said, he just had a heart attack. He died. And I knew nothing about this topic. So I was kind of talking about the previous show, and people call in and gave me their condolences, and they said, oh, Tom passed. And so I thought, I can never have this happen again. I need to prep my show so that I can have a conversation with the guest to talk about their specialty that I understand. And I had a lady who said, oh, I give seminars. I talk for a whole weekend with people. 2 hours is not a problem. When I turned on the microphone and started talking to her, she just shut down. She gave me even a list of questions to ask her. And she answered every question with yes and no. And we came to the bottom of the hour, and I said, we were 40 minutes, we did then 3 20-minute segments. And I said, after the second segment, I said, we're going to start all over, and this time you're going to give me answers. And she said, I'm answering you. I said, no, all you do is give me yes or no's. I'm running out of stuff. I don't know what to ask you. This is your job. So I had a few of those instances where I said, I'm never going to get caught out again. I'm going to study. And I would therefore, Tim, I would spend between 5 and 12 hours prepping a show, learning about what the guest was probably going to talk about by going to their website, reading articles about their field, trying to understand what they were trying to say, read the book they had written. So what happened then? What did I learn? Be prepared. Number 2, ask questions and demand answers. I felt many times when I talked to naturopathic physicians specifically, many local, I'm not saying today, but at the time, they were just running around the bush. They would never just give me like an answer that you go like, now that's something I can, that is a splash. That's a topic that is really well answered. They would just pussyfoot around the topic, and I go like, come on, I can answer the question myself. I've been reading about it. I know how people talk about it. I know how professionals talk about it. And I was just frustrated that they didn't give me the straight answers. And so that is something I was very frustrated about, that I just didn't always get a straight answer, a good answer, a usable answer, a hopeful answer for the listeners I'm not saying everybody, but I felt too many times I go like, what about this and then this? And they just wouldn't answer. And if you want a little bit of a shock, you want the person to say, I'm just as frustrated as you, Jacobus. I'm in this job and I want to help people, but I'm limited because of these bastards who do this and this. So I felt at times, to answer your question again, that I was more prepared for the show than that the guest was.
Yeah, well, I mean, why do you think they wouldn't answer? Do you think they're afraid of losing their job or something? Or
that somebody is listening in.
And you think that was the same thing with the woman that you said would do the week-long or the weekend seminar?
Long. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe she was microphone shell-shocked, whatever you call that.
Yeah, I mean, because you'd almost think when you're speaking in front of a big crowd, you'd be much more nervous than two people, but maybe for some people it's the opposite.
Yeah, I've done this now so long, I'm not intimidated by a microphone, but some people are.
Yeah, I mean, when you say that, because you were reminding me of a politician, because that's what they're known for, is they can, they're like very creative the way they will dance around questions.
Yeah.
Because they, you don't, like everything you say could be the next thing that helps you.
Your career.
Yeah, your next election.
You're going to get sued.
Yeah.
You go like, but we have freedom of speech. I should be able to say what comes to mind. I should be able to be mean to you right now. And, and vice versa. You could say, I don't like your answer. Okay, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
That should be able to, but they're too careful. And it's funny that we talked about it this morning at home with my cameraman and my wife. And that they said, my interviews are really good. The topics are really good. It is just that what do people want to hear? Do they want to hear that I talk about that the pharmaceutical companies are on such a control? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about how they have manipulated. Let's talk about the opioid crisis, that documentaries have been made about how many people are into opioids. When we look at the veterans and we see how the veterans are really treated, they deserve better. Well, in my opinion, everybody deserves better. But if you take the group of veterans, they are just struggling. There's too much suicide. Let's talk about it. People don't dare to talk about it. And that to me is, they said, maybe we need to start hitting some of those topics and get people to watch and get people to listen and really get people to say, you know what, I am so angry. I'm so frustrated. I keep hitting the wall. I keep asking for help and I don't get the help, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think that is out there. People, when you start listening into opioids and you see people, how many people do we know who have cancer? And still, if I would talk about cancer and say, there is a cure for cancer. Let me say it this way. I just went to a seminar and the guy said, who has done 25 years of cancer research with botanicals. He said, if anybody tells you they have a cure for cancer, walk away, because there is no cure for cancer, because you can never control it 100%. So I get that part. But there are too many people who have cancer, who literally go into the funnel, the funnel of Western medicine. And they start over here, and they have their research, and they have their interviews, and they have their talks, and they think about it, and they go back to this specialist, and they just keep going down, 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 and eventually they just go down the middle of the funnel, and they end up with chemo, radiation, and surgery. And it's like, come on. Too many people still die. How can we put millions of dollars? See, here I go. Now I hit a topic, right?
Yeah.
How can we spend, I would say, 1974, Betty Ford was diagnosed with breast cancer. Why? Because she had a mammogram. Her friend had a mammogram. She said, hey, why don't you have a mammogram? So she did a mammogram. They discover she has a lump. 3 days later, she has a lumpectomy or a mastectomy. And she would go out, Betty Ford would go out in the media and say, thank you to the doctors who I went to, who did a mammogram on me. I discovered I had breast cancer. I had surgery, it's all done. I'm going to do chemo, going to do radiation, etc. This is what happened to mammograms. They just went up. The amount of people who died of cancer didn't really grow much, but the business of mammograms was through the roof.
Yeah.
And now we're 50 years later. We have spent billions on cancer research, billions, if not trillion, maybe $1 trillion worldwide, with all the fundraisers, all the walks for cancer, the Susan G. Komen organization, all these organizations. We still are using chemo, we still use mammograms, we still use radiation. Why? You cannot tell me that there is nothing else out there that could possibly help in the process, but they don't talk about it. And if I would go on the radio in my weekly commercial, and I would say, I think that if you use these few botanicals, your cancer risk will diminish to less than 10%. Or if I would say, when you use this, your symptoms will be diminished, I could probably get shut down for saying something that I am not qualified to say, even though it's like there is a grandstand of millions of people who would love to hear somebody say there is hope when you're diagnosed with cancer, and that hope is not in chemo, radiation, and surgery. That hope is in something you can do yourself, that you can diminish it tremendously, and you may never need that surgery. And that is what frustrates me, that topics like that are taboo, because I'm not a medical doctor, even though the medical doctors still cannot cure cancer, because cancer is still the number 2 cause of death in this nation, after the more than $1 trillion of research that has been done, and they keep putting more money into it.
Yeah, and if you're someone that's diagnosed with this, how terrifying is it when every professional is telling you to do this? You almost seem crazy if you're going to seek out something else, because everyone is telling you got to do this, you got to do this. I don't claim to have the answer, neither do you. But when I think everyone around you, the media, your friends, your family, say you got to do this conventional treatment, you almost sound like you're crazy, or you don't believe. Like, I think the fear of everyone judging you for not doing that is probably like just as scary as the cancer is.
There are a lot of stories of people who decided not to go the conventional route, who are living a very healthy and happy life.
Yeah.
And they may have cancer, but they control it with their diet, their lifestyle, getting enough rest, positive mental attitude, some dietary supplements, and they're fine. And I've seen them. I've done it for 32 years, Tim, and I see people who are successful in fighting cancers and who said, never ever in my life will I do that treatment. And so, sadly, I had a lady, breast cancer, and she went to the doctor. The doctor said, we found a lump, we want to do a mastectomy. She said, well, I want a second opinion. She ended up going to a naturopath who looked at her MRIs and photos and said, well, I actually concur with the doctor. I think you should go that route. And then she came to me and she said, what can I do? And I said, well, I would say, ask the doctor if you could take 6 months to fight it. You're going to do 6 months because it's only stage 1.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to do 6 months to try to overcome this cancer. If in 6 months you have not diminished it, I'm not saying that it is gone, but if it is diminished, we're on the right track, right? Ask him if you can do that, and if that doesn't work in 6 months, we can still do his treatment. She said she was really happy, positive for that. She goes back to the doctor and he says, yeah, go ahead and do it. However, if in 6 months your cancer has not diminished, your insurance will not pay for the treatment anymore.
Oh, wow.
And so that is the thing. It's not that we have doctors. It's not that we have doctors who are caring, but doctors who do not work for themselves, who have a building, who have do their own paperwork, who do not work with other people, they'll make those kind of decisions. People who work in a group setting, in a hospital, have to follow the rules of the hospital. They have to say, this is the strategy we use here. You either stick with it or you don't. And if you don't want to stick with it, they tell the doctors, you can go start your own practice, which financially would be very difficult for them if they have to pay off these expensive student loans, etc. So you have a lot of doctors who would like to help, but they're simply limited on what they can say. So every doctor has the same story. So if you get a second opinion, you get the same opinion. So now you go like, well, I better do it because this doctor says it also. People are stuck because of insurances, because of pharmaceuticals, because of the medical doctor plan. All that is really complicated. And then you have things like supplements that I'm doing. They're not covered by insurance.
Yeah.
So, and of course, when you say it has to be covered by insurance, then the insurance company is going to come in and say, well, then we're going to set the rules. So it's very difficult. It can become very expensive, but we've been doing it for 19 years, myself for 32, and I see that people want to buy supplements, and they, and I feel that the variety of different topics that we discuss or that we address in the store, Gesundheit Nutrition Center, is we have over 6,000 products in there of all different genres and fields that you can attack, be it heart, be it joints, be it cancer, be it immune health in general, be it allergies, for children, for babies. There's something for everybody.
Yeah. And like back to the doctors too, is like, it's like the doctors don't even have a choice. And this is a massive, massive business that they're a part of. And, it puts people and doctors and everyone in a very weird position where, do they have any other choice like that woman?
They don't.
6 months later, you can't, and that's very expensive treatment if you're not, insurance isn't covering it.
Yeah, that's horrible. And it shouldn't be that way. We should be in a country where people should say, with all the new discoveries, right? With new discoveries, we should try something different. Mm-hmm. But if you still, after 50 years, still use mammograms as your primary diagnostic for breast cancer, with all the false negatives and the false positives, some women have very small breasts. It's 27 pounds of pressure. It's no fun. Mm-hmm. We don't have to do it, you and I, but for women, it's very unpleasant. And when they have dense breast tissue, they don't know if they can really look behind the tissue to see if there is something going on. But even when it is diagnosed, what are the options? People literally and I think that one of the things that plays a role in here, it's very difficult for people to say, I'm going to change my diet and lifestyle. if you can change your diet and lifestyle, you and I see each other at the gym.
Mm-hmm.
That takes effort.
Yeah.
Who likes to wake up at 5:30 or so to go to the gym, or even earlier than that? It takes time and effort to do something. And then when you leave the gym, are you going to eat junk food, or are you going to say, hey, what can I do to eat food that is nourishing for my body? And we all have struggles. We have had, trust me, we've been going through struggles in our life to get to the point where we are. And that is what everybody can say. Everybody said, my God, my journey was very special, but it got me here today. Mm-hmm. Or they were really successful and they made some bad choices and they end up in a very difficult position. So I feel, in this industry, the dietary supplement industry, in the health, in the alternative health, it's a tough world to be in, because I feel we're doing good. Some people say, you guys are really the only game in town, mm-hmm. because there's nobody who has the selection that you have and nobody gives the advice that you give. But it is not that we say we have a cure for this or a cure for that. We're just a little bit more willing to answer questions when people have questions about cholesterol, about cancer, heart disease, blood pressure, sleep, anxiety, depression. There's so many symptoms that people have, and so many people are desperate. We just talked about the veterans. Mm-hmm. I mean, I did a lecture during a seminar for veterans, and the pain that comes out of it. Let's face it, you did military?
No.
Me neither. I was born in 1959, and they said, we don't need you. I said, well, okay. Mm. But when you talk to the veterans, there are many times there are young boys who were difficult in school, who had broken up families, who had issues. They just needed to be straightened out, and they just went into the military to get a haircut and to get food and to get disciplined and to become incredible machines. But they still have feelings. And then when they come out of that rhythm where everything is organized and strategized, to all of a sudden, you got to get up yourself and get a job and get in a relationship. They haven't had that part of the training.
Yeah.
In the military, and for them to come out and then be stuck, it's difficult. And do we really address it? Yes, of course, we pay for the meds, but why not for the supplements? Why not, if they don't feel like taking meds, what are some dietary supplements out there like St. John's wort and ashwagandha and holy basil and valerian root and magnesium, that are all really good to help the mind get clear without becoming addicted, to overcome their trauma, their PTSD, etc. There are other options than just medicating it. The average American over 65, Tim, average over 65 takes 8 medications a day.
Oh, wow.
Average. I had a lady in the store last week, 54, is taking 18 medications every day.
Yikes.
Double, triple, some things are different medications for the same problem. And then she comes in and she buys supplements also. It's like, man, how can your body, your kidneys, your liver all process all that stuff? We need to go through that, weed it out. But people come in and they ask me, Jacobus, is there anything that I'm taking that I could do without? And I just look at it. I grab the book that tells you what the prescription drug is for, what the side effects are. I read them the side effects, and they say, oh, I got that. I said, then do yourself a favor. Talk to your doctor. When I look at your list, I think these 3 are doubling. So let's just see if you can eliminate 2 of them and maybe cut them down, and let's go. Talk to your doctor. Mm-hmm. Talk to your doctor and say, I need a better answer, instead of you just giving me prescription drugs. It needs to be done.
Yeah.
We are, number one, we can't afford it. The society cannot afford it. The taxpayers don't want to pay for it. The insurance companies, the rates go up because people are all over medicated. Can't have it.
Yeah, when you talk about the health insurance won't cover supplements. I always wish would it cover my gym membership.
Yeah.
And I will talk with my CPA because I have a business. I'll say, hey, isn't this a business expense?
Yeah.
We need to stay healthy. We need to stay in shape. It's not a business expense and your health insurance won't cover it. But what it will cover is, you could say in a lot of ways is really killing you, a lot of these medications.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that'd be great. And I'd be a huge advocate for if our health insurance would cover our supplements and our gym memberships. Mm-hmm. I think we'd be in a totally different world, but
I agree.
There's a lot of business behind that.
I agree.
That, is preventing that from happening.
Yeah. When people had high cholesterol back in 1995, they pushed the statin drugs so much that they said at the time in 1995, 1994, if your total cholesterol was 300, they said that's maybe a little high, but they researched people with high cholesterol and they noticed that they never had cancer or heart disease and they lived to be 90 years old. So cholesterol is not the problem. Okay, we can talk, that's a whole other show. Mm-hmm. 1995, they dropped that number to 250. If your total cholesterol is over 250, they wanted you to go on a statin drug, which is a cholesterol-lowering drug, like Crestor, Lipitor, Zocor, the statin drugs, rosuvastatin. And then they said, on top of that, we're going to raise your insurance rates. So you are at a higher risk of getting a heart attack or heart disease, which would become a burden on society. So people had to pay more insurance when the cholesterol was over 250, forcing them to go on a statin drug to bring it under 250. Then in 1999, 2000, they brought it from 250 to 235. Same thing. In 2006, they brought it to 215. In 2012, it became 200. In 2021, 22, they were talking even about 180. You don't want to be over 180. And then all of a sudden, in 2025, now they're saying we're not looking at total cholesterol anymore. After pushing it for 30 plus years, statin drugs, so many people it's the number one prescribed drug in this country, statin drugs. And you know what still, after 30 years, is the number one cause of death in this country? Heart disease.
Oh, wow.
Heart disease and heart attack, still number one cause of death. So instead of saying maybe cholesterol is not the problem because the medications lowering the cholesterol haven't helped, but there was a study published in 2012 by MIT that came to the real conclusion that people who take statin drugs have more cancer and more Alzheimer's.
Wow.
Because cholesterol is important for hormone production. And the very first hormone we produce from cholesterol is called pregnenolone. And pregnenolone is a brain hormone. So if you don't make the hormones anymore, your brain doesn't function. You probably develop Alzheimer's if you have any inclination of developing that. So all of a sudden, now they're saying, we're not looking at total anymore. We're looking only at your LDL. Mm-hmm. Like I said, it's a whole other topic. But that is, it's, in my opinion, if I can be totally honest, this is the biggest scam ever produced in Western medicine.
Yeah, and you can be because you're on a podcast. So
I know. Freedom of speech.
Yeah. No, it's nice to hear that because you hear things like this, but I think we're going in the right direction with this information.
I don't know. With your information, yeah.
I think that more people can find out about this stuff, and I think eventually, hopefully, the healthcare system will catch up with this. And
there's too much money in it, Tim.
Yeah, maybe little by little.
There are more people making a living off cancer than people who die from cancer.
That's a scary stat.
It is, because the research, my God, they're pumping so much money. What cancer is under control right now? Really?
Yeah, none, right?
None.
Yeah.
None. Maybe some childhood. Why does a child have cancer? Mm-hmm. Makes no sense to me. But they do. It is what it is. I cannot talk about St. Jude's or anything. I think it is amazing that we have organizations that do that. But are they ethical? I don't know. I would have to research it. Is it just a moneymaker for them? And, kids get free treatment, which is, again, it's phenomenal. There are families who are absolutely, I would say 98% of the parents love their children and would give their organs for them if they can survive. Mm-hmm. So for them to have a place, let's say, like a St. Jude's or even Chaudère up in Helena for emotionally challenged children is a phenomenal gift. And so I would say do more research on it, but why do we have the cancer? If a St. Jude is still following the same pattern of what Western medicine wants it to do, then yes, we have a place where children can go, but they're suffering. They may die. They're all bald. They have their surgeries and their treatments. We need to get away from the chemo, radiation, and surgery because it hasn't shown to slow down cancer. So there has to be a faucet somewhere that is still open that feeds cancer, and we got to get out of it. We got to turn the faucet out.
And then you get into our food and all the stuff that's in our food, all the pesticides and the herbicides and the processed food. And there's that's a whole nother money machine.
It is. The food industry, there are some great movies made. Food Matters, I think, was one of them, and Forks and Knives and stuff, Fork and Knives or something like that. There is some really great insight in the industry behind the food industry. And it is very, very sad what we're dealing with under the but the advertising is really good. They want to show you how wonderful job they do. Yeah. But the reality is when I see the people and I talk to customers, the struggles that they have, and they're simply looking for an answer. Mm-hmm. And then you want to go to a physician, you want to go to a hospital, you want to go see a doctor. You got sometimes people have to wait 4, 5, 6 months. Tim, I had people in who said, well, we were told to come talk to you. I said, well, who said so? Well, so-and-so. I said, wow, oh, yeah. Great. Oh, they love you. Great. I have cancer. And we start talking about that cancer. And they said, the problem is we have to wait 3 months before we can see our doctor. I said, oh, that's wonderful. And they said, what do you mean that's wonderful? I said, well, we have 3 months to go to work. Mm-hmm. If you really want to fight the cancer, let's go to work. Because you're not going to be able to see the doctor anyway. Let's try some dietary supplements. Let's make some changes in your diet, in your sleep, in your lifestyle. Let's go to work. I'll be your coach. Talk to me. Text me. Just come give me your reports. Mm-hmm. But try something for 3 months. What if we see an improvement? Which route do you want to go then? What if we can cure the issue that you're dealing with, literally not curing because I did it, but because they did it themselves, right? Maybe you can give up your position to somebody who's really desperate to see the doctor. Now they can put that person in. Yeah,
that'd be great.
Yeah, I had when the radio show, there was a veteran who called me. He had an eye problem, and he called me, and it was the show was live then, and we took phone calls, and he said, well, I'm waiting for the VA, to get me into the eye doctors, and and I want to get it paid. I said, well, I got to wait 4 months, and I said, what do you do, John? What do you do for a living? And he said, I'm a contractor. I said, you work for free or you make money? He said, no, I make money. I said, John, you know how many people, veterans, are not able to work? I said, you got a job, you got a business, you're doing well. Just pay your own way when it comes to going to an eye doctor for your exam. Mm-hmm. I said, then that frees up the line for somebody else to go see a VA a doctor who doesn't have the money, who is in a wheelchair, who cannot do this kind of stuff. And he said, well, you're actually right about that. I said, well, yeah, dang, I'm right. And everybody who's listening, if you can do it, yes, you did the military. Thank you. I mean it. But let's not baby you now for the rest of your life because you're a military vet. You did it. Phenomenal. Let's move on. You moved on. You have children. You're married or not, divorced. You got a job or not. Life is open. There are many options that we have when it comes to our health, what we can do.
Yeah, I agree completely. You reminded me of something I wanted to ask you about before we were talking about food, because you were a chef. Do you still cook now?
I cook at home.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't do professionally.
But you put a pretty big emphasis on what kind of food you cook, I'd imagine, right? And what kind of food you eat?
Yeah, we eat as organic as we can, grass-fed beef, freshwater fish, free-range chickens that are, they run around and they pick the bugs and stuff. We try to stay off the ones that, even with eggs, we try to get the eggs from grass-fed, grass-finished chickens. And, that's more the cows, of course. But the free-range chickens, we try to focus. I don't do sodas. I cut out the heavy alcohol out of my system. I may have a glass of wine now and then, not always organic, but I try to stay away from. Lately, if I drink wine, I try to stay away from the American wines because of all the sulfites they put in it. They don't really have that in Argentina and Italy and France. So I try to. Italian wine is pretty good, actually, a little bit more robust than the French wine. But for the rest, food-wise, organic bread. We watch what we can. Don't overeat. I don't eat junk food. I mean, whatever you call junk food.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a woman, her place is actually down the street here. She did the podcast. She owns a French bakery, Aurore.
Oh, yeah. My daughter is like addicted to them. I think she is stuck in the business right now.
Because she gets all her flour shipped here. It's
straight
imported
from France. And the butter, too.
Yeah, and that avoids, there's very different regulations, as I'm sure you know. They can't use all the stuff that we use in the U.S. Yeah. I've had some of it, and because I will have some gluten intolerance, and I really don't. I don't notice it when I eat there. I've just cut out most bread and that stuff because of it. But I think it probably is more of a reaction to what's in it rather than what it is. And my sister has it, much more severe than me. I would get it in my hands. I'd feel
eczema or something, or
it was like arthritis almost, and I'd feel it, depending on what I would eat.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of that processed or, stuff that's treated with everything where I'd really feel the difference in my hands were the first place I could feel it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think that's probably, you would say, just as important as the supplementation is what you're eating in the first place.
Absolutely, Tim. And I think that you bring up, again, a very interesting topic. You say, when I eat gluten, I usually get an arthritic type pain. Other people have tinnitus. Other people have headaches. Other people have diarrhea, or they have another skin irritation, like an eczema. What is it when people come in? How can you just walk into a doctor's office where you see the nurse, they check your height, they check your weight, they check your blood pressure, they do that kind of stuff. Then the doctor walks in, really only has about 10 minutes. You try to tell him your life story. Well, doc, I went to this and then I had that. And, you want to tell him, you want to share to get this sympathetic ear or empathetic ear that says, I get it. Let me give you some suggestions. No, they say, okay, you got that pain, we're going to give you this pill. And so right away, people go in and out of a hospital with more pills. And you clearly state, my problem, if you would come to me and say, well, I got arthritis, I got pain in my joints. You can say, well, let's try some glucosamine or MSM or do some curcumin or curcuminoids or stuff like that, anything anti-inflammatory, that would not do you a service. If I not that I have to solve all the problems, but we all have issues. Are we willing to look at the issues and make changes in our diet and lifestyle before we jump on the supplements or in this case, the prescription drugs? The opioid crisis, the pain medications that people are on, the alcoholism that we have, it's all self-medication, a lot of self-medication from people because they don't want to think or have not been educated or don't want to be educated about something they can do themselves.
Yeah, because it's hard to change.
Yeah, it is. And listen, we need physicians. I think they have a good mind. And there are times when we have to be, it's cliche, you break apart, you have a bad accident, whatever. You need to have physicians to put you back together. I get it. But that's not why the majority of people go see physicians. There is a limitation in what a medical doctor is allowed to do. And there is a wide open field of 5,000 years of history where somebody started with chewing on an herb and said, oh my God, I got a tingle in my ear. They started noticing that when they would eat something out of Mother Nature, it started to have an effect. Well, that turned into proposing it to the emperor or people who lived in Native American tribes. They found certain herbs, certain plants, roots that were able to heal their wounds. It's been going on for 5,000 years. It is a crime, in my opinion, a crime that Western medicine does not even want to open the book on medical history to see how many people have stand on each other's shoulders over the generations, over the centuries, over the millennia, to come where we are today, to just simply say, none of that works. As they say, this has not been approved by the FDA. Excuse me? Mm-hmm. What do we know about the FDA? Right? So if you take 5,000 years of research to simply push it away and said, we're going to take it from here. Thank you very much. We're going to do everything now with medication and injections and surgery and treatments that have damaged and killed people. You know that Western medicine is the third leading cause of death in this country?
Oh, really?
There was a study published in 2016 by Harvard Medical School. And the study was actually published in the British Medical Journal. And it said the number one cause was heart disease, number two was cancer, number three, Western medicine. And we're talking now, Tim, 10 years ago, and at that time, they said it was between 250,000 and 300,000 people every year who die from the mistakes made by physicians and the side effects of medication.
Yikes.
And what do? Let's put more money into it. So there's more money going into Western medicine, and there is a place for them. I don't say that we shouldn't have them, but it's too overpowering, and it's suppressing 5,000 years of other options that are very fertile, that are very helpful, that are less invasive, and that could have good effects if people just want to apply them.
So if people listen to this and they want to apply them, like where would you tell them to start on that journey? Come see you.
Well, I hope to reach out.
Yeah.
At the same time, just if this inspires you, there is so much available on the internet. And I know that many people say, well, I read this article and the article said that ginkgo biloba for the brain doesn't work, or that product you talk about doesn't work. I said, who wrote the article? Mm-hmm. Who wrote the article to promote that medication? You think all the articles on statin drugs, how wonderful they are written by really biased, unbiased researchers? Absolutely not. Look, follow the trail, follow the money, and see who they're being paid by. So you got to be careful when you research. But if people are local who are watching this video, by all means, the door is always open. Just come in. And don't expect that we're just going to say, screw the doctor, screw the hospital. We just say, this is not about them. We're talking about you. You come in and talk to me face to face. You are expressing your pain, your worries, your history. I am working with you. I want to understand where this comes from. The times I have asked him that somebody said, I deal with this and this and this. And I said, how long have you been dealing with it now? And they said, oh, it's been going on for 12 years. And then I say, anything happened to you 13, 14 years ago? Oh, Tim, the amount of people who just start bawling. They lost a dog. They lost a job. Somebody else died in the family. Their children, they had a fight with the children. The children walked out the door, never talked to them again. Things of that nature. Something traumatic happened that at the time brought a lot of sadness. Then life goes on, but they were never able to finalize that chapter. Mm-hmm. So that is why a lot of military people have PTSD, or firemen or policemen. When they retire, they've seen so much trauma that there is no support, and you're kind of left on your own. So I want to understand where the journey for them started and see if we can trace it back and see if we can solve the pain before we start healing the physical body. Yeah. And there is a connection. You cannot deny that we all have a spirit. We have mental capacity. We have emotions. We have a physical body. And if we take enough time, we can address all four of those and try to find peace and calm and balance in all four.
That's very cool. When you were talking earlier and you were talking about your radio show, remember how you told me you'd give like 30 seconds to say what the next episode was about? If I give you 30 seconds or 5 minutes, and someone's really interested in this and is going to watch your show, like what can they expect in the next 6 months from your podcast?
That's a good one. Well, there is a doctor in California who is an expert on pH balance. I think it's very interesting. We're going to reach out to we're going to reach out to Micah Fink, who is in Manhattan over here, who does Heroes and Horses program for veterans. Cool. We're going to reach out to a veteran who is also working in Virginia, in Washington, D.C., lobbying, but he has PTSD and he's been military, and they have started a program in Helena. I want to get him on. I would like to talk, there's a naturopath I want to talk to in town, Allison Bonville. She wants to be on and talk about what she has learned as a naturopathic physician in working with clients now in the last 30 years, what changes she has seen. I want to get a show going with the researcher who did the 25 years botanical work on cancer, who said there is no cure for cancer, but his research, he works for the Hope for Cancer Clinic in California. I'm going to have him on a Zoom call. He said, call me anytime and I'll be on. There is a medical doctor in Florida who wrote a book. It's called The Hormone Health Zone, Dr. Don Colbert. And I would like to get him on in a podcast. There is a lady who has a clinic in Helena who is called Dynamic Health, and her name is Carol Wilcox. She has a master's in nursing, and she is just a wealth of information when it comes to alternative therapies to fight all kinds of disorders. So those are some of the people I have in mind that I think could be an interesting topic, whereby people say, it makes me think, there are definitely different options out there. But I notice also, Tim, that it's one thing that you can do a good interview. It's another thing that you promote it correctly, that you use the right verbiage in your thumbnail, and You know, and that is, we want to bring people in and listen to it. But with my podcast, some of them are 2 hours or a little bit longer or an hour and a half. It is difficult to have people listen for more than 12 minutes. And so then it starts to drop off. So I do hope that people, when they hear me say this sentence, that they say, oh, yeah, we stayed through the whole thing. It was interesting.
Yeah. I mean, because they'll stay through the whole thing of this one if they've gone that far.
Then they hear this part.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, that sounds like a great preview of a lot of very interesting guests. And it seems like that will very much follow a lot of what we just talked about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's, there's so much good information. I'm very glad that you're doing what you're doing and you're giving people hope and promoting alternatives than what they're traditionally told. I know maybe I can be a little bit contrary sometimes, but for whatever reason, I just think that there's many more options. We don't have to be stuck on in the traditional system. I think there's a lot of great things there, but we shouldn't be limited to that either.
There's a new iPhone coming out next month. Google comes out with phones. Every year, updates, upgrades. And somehow, when it comes to health, we're stuck.
Yeah.
Makes no sense.
Yeah,
There's constantly new stuff coming out. I have 6,000 products at the Gesundheit Nutrition Center. People walk in, they're overwhelmed. We try to have it organized, but they're overwhelmed because they've never seen that many vitamins. And so we show them the areas, the sections for the eye health, for the heart health, sugar balancing, fibers, oils, essential oils, homeopathy. There is so many different parts that you can go into that is for many people, it's Chinese. And to give a little bit of education and give them hope, oh my God, I didn't even know that something like this existed. The research that is being published about dietary supplements, the value on the government website, PubMed.gov. It's an NIH website, PubMed, published medical journals, PubMed.gov. You can find all kinds of research on dietary supplements that is positive. But somehow, when you go to a doctor, they say, well, these things are not been evaluated by the FDA. Well, has your medication really been evaluated by the FDA? Why do we need to see commercials on TV more and more on prescription drugs? 30 seconds, 15 seconds, well, 30 seconds, you see somebody dance through a field and in the sun and they're laughing and this and that. And then the last 15 seconds is all the side effects. Makes no sense. They have to do it this way, but we shouldn't take products that can have that many side effects, because what it tells me, Tim, is that we are an experiment for the pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah.
Everybody, why are they pushing all these drugs? Not because they know they work. They're going to find out in 3 years that a lot of people did not like it, and then they may take it off the market. And that's why they say that doctors are practicing and that we are called patients, because we have to be damn patients while they're practicing. And I get it. It's the way the system works. It just doesn't work and not everybody fits in that mold.
Yeah.
So I encourage people, please don't give up if you have a health issue. There is light at the end of the tunnel. There is hope.
And I'll say to you, with your store with over 6,000 supplements, when I've been in there, your staff is very helpful at helping people find, if it's overwhelming, go here, here's 4 different options. Here's what they do. So that's been my experience every time I've come in.
Awesome.
The other thing I was thinking too, I don't watch a lot of TV, but I watch baseball. And that's when I see those commercials. This is my trick. If you or anyone wants it, I always mute the TV when the commercials come on.
Yes.
So I don't even want to hear it.
Well, I like to record stuff so I can fast forward.
Yeah. So I just mute those commercials, but I know those commercials because they're probably more than half the commercials.
It's prescription drugs right now.
Yeah.
Because they have the money. Why? Why did they have the money? How can you make that much money?
Yeah.
only if you push it. How come I cannot push vitamin D on radio and they try to shut me down for saying that vitamin D is good for antiviruses? You know that vitamin D has been researched in 26 different cancers, make it better?
Wow.
26?
Yeah.
If I say that openly on a commercial, they're going to come after me the next week.
I hope they don't come after me too, because you said it on this.
Freedom of speech, buddy.
Yeah. No, that's
I didn't
good.
say which vitamin D.
You're right.
D3.
Well, I do take D3 every day, so that's good to know.
Yeah, that's why you should take it.
Yeah.
Antiviral. So it fights viruses, makes you happy. Everybody is happier when they take vitamin D. If you take enough vitamin D.
Yeah.
Good
Like
for energy.
5,000.
I don't know. You have to do a blood test.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of what mine is, but
Yeah, you could do 5,000 units, but maybe that's not enough for you. I do 20,000 a day
okay.
for me to get to the level where I want to be.
Yeah.
But some people take 4,000 and they absorb it better than I do.
Well, I think we'll wrap this up, but where you said your doors are always open, but you guys are closed one day a week, right?
Yeah, Sundays.
Sunday. Okay.
And it was actually because of the radio show which started on Sunday. So I was doing Sunday mornings when we opened the store, and I said, if I have been up all night and somebody calls me and says, well, I feel sick, I can't come in today at 10 o'clock. I said, no, I'm not going to go run to the store. So I said, right away, let's not do Sundays. So 9 to 6, Monday through Saturday. We're located on North 19th where Best Buy is, around the corner. Five Guys, I'm between Five Guys and Subway Inn. So next door to Subway, so people go there and they come to us for enzymes, and that's a running joke.
Yeah.
So
that's after Subway or Five Guys?
both.
Yeah.
But so we're next door to Subway, and we've been there 19 years, almost 19 and a half years. So I'm excited. It's good. It's we're not planning on moving. We love it there. We are very grateful. I want to close out with this, Tim. 19 and a half years of support from the community. It's phenomenal, and I am so grateful. It's humbling that we do this. Like I said, I came out of I told you a little bit about my history. Somebody said, why don't you give up your window cleaning business and because there was no money in chefing. I made more money cleaning windows when you have a family of 5. So for somebody to say, I think you would do really well in this health food industry. That man, I told him this, I said, I am always grateful for you seeing something in me I didn't even know existed. So I'm very grateful. I'm humbled by the support, and I just hope to give back to people. My consultations are free. There is no worry about, how much is that going to cost? I may spend an hour with you, try to help you, but that is my way of giving back.
Well, thank you for doing what you're doing. I think you're a huge value to the community. And if anyone hears your voice, they should know who it is, because I don't recognize the accent, but there's something very unique about it.
Yeah, there is something about it. Yes, That's right. Well, thanks, Tim.
Thank you, Jacobus. And I'm glad I can finally pronounce your name right.
Yeah, you got my name.
Yeah, Jacobus. Thank
you so much.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
Thanks for listening, folks. You can find the full blog post for every episode, along with key takeaways and links at mountain-mule.com. If you haven't yet, consider following the show. That one small action helps these Montana businesses get seen, grow, and thrive, and it helps this podcast keep going too. If you know a business that would be a good fit for the show, we'd love to hear from you. Just reach out through the website or social. Thank you for supporting these Montana businesses. See you on the next show.